And one of the things I wanted to do in this study was look at how do we predict violence in African American male youth. So what I did was I looked at 5 variables, 5 scales or measurements, 5 surveys, if you will, right? And the 5 surveys were going to ask the question, what is the relationship to this variable and the use of violence? So that's the dependent variable. What I want to find out is use of violence. So the first 2 variables that I use, you are familiar with. It's all through the literature. You've read about it and heard about it, and it's specials all on television and everything. And that is violence victimization. We know that if there is victimization, there's likelihood that that person is going to grow up to be what? Violent, because they've been victimized. So that's called a baseline variable, something we know. Then we have violence witnessing. We also know that the more witnessing you have of violence, the more likelihood you're going to have violence. So those are 2 baselines. The next 3 were cultural or socio-cultural variables. These were the variables I wanted to connect with culture, with history, and with injury. So the first variable that comes out is a variable called urban hassles. My hypothesis was the more urban hassles, the more violence. And I surveyed all 200 of these young men to find out, well, what is the urban hassle? Do you hear sirens at night? Do you hear gunshots? Do people approach you trying to sell you drugs? Do you try to find a safer route home from school sometimes? Are you fearful of the safety of yourself or your family? Those are called urban hassles. And I said the more of them, the more violence. Now we understand what created the urban setting, right? You understand that that was something deliberate. Urban ghettos and all that sort of thing. It's deliberate. And within those are the urban hassles that go along with it. Yet unmeasured for us. Because we've normalized it, right? Do you see what I'm saying? This becomes normal behavior. We've normalized the stressors associated with being black. I want the day to come when they put electrodes on a brother when a police car rides up behind him. Because, you know, when a police car rides up behind my husband, I know that that police car is there without my husband ever saying a word. His entire body language changes. We haven't done anything wrong, yet there is a hypersensitivity. There's a look in the rear view. There's a checking to make certain everybody's in their seatbelt. This is 2004. Nobody's measured the electrodes that go into the stressors associated with being black. Okay, that's when we don't measure. You know, there's a stress scale where they measure, you know, if you get married, you get divorced, if you move, if you know, somebody dies, somebody born. How about if you're black? There's a stressor associated with being black. Nobody's ever measured that. Okay, so now when you begin to look at this urban hassle, I said it predicted. Now here's the next one. Now this variable is an important one. It's called racial socialization. All this, it can be found in a published dissertation, but the racial socialization scale, both of these scales, by the way, written by black people, this racial socialization scale is actually a protective factor. We're saying that this is going to build resilience. Now, what is racial socialization? Racial socialization implies and suggests that we should prepare our children that they may be entering a hostile environment. But even if they enter that hostile environment, they're going to be okay. And the reason they're going to be okay is because they got a God. And the reason why they're going to be okay is because they have a rich, strong culture. And if for some reason mama can't help you, grandma, auntie, or uncle can. They learn that you are not the descendant of slaves, but you are the descendant of captured free men. You learn that you have self-efficacy in and of yourself, that you have intrinsic value, power, all by yourself. And I suggested that the more racial socialization, the less violence. Now the fourth or the fifth variable that I looked at, I searched for, I waited for, because this was going to be the linchpin, and I knew it. And they kept telling me about this scale and mom and daddy scale and who in the house scale and socioeconomic. And I said, no, that's not what this scale's got to be about. But it's interesting how things come to you, because I knew that it would have to come from these young men. And so I would meet with them, and suddenly I kept hearing this over and over again. Well, you know, they diss me. You know, that's what happens when you diss a brother. Well, the reason why that brother went down like that is because he was dissed. Meaning what? disrespected. And I heard it, both groups, all 200. It would happen so much. I said, okay, I've got to look at the relationship of respect to violence. So I immediately went back to my committee and I said, I need to find a respect scale. And I searched the literature and there wasn't one. And so my committee said, oh, it seems you have a problem. I said, but I must write one then. Well, they say, you're not I'm not one of those people that create scales. I have no skill in that. It's never been tested. It's never been measured. It's never been, none of that. But they couldn't argue because one didn't exist. So I wrote the scale, and they didn't know if it was going to perform, meaning that it was reliable or valid. They didn't know it had face validity, but they weren't certain. But I looked at respect in these categories: respect among family, respect among peers, respect among institutions, and respect among authority in society. I wanted to know what these young men felt about respect, and my hypothesis was the degree to which they felt respected, they would have less violence, and the degree to which they felt disrespected, conversely, would produce violence. So I did a linear regression analysis, meaning I took all of those variables and I looked at them as it related to significant prediction of use of violence. And all of the hypothesis was correct. Well, great, that was wonderful. Now we know that more victimization and witnessing produces violence, more urban hassles produces violence, more racial socialization decreases violence, less respect, more violence, more respect, less violence. So it became very clear, great. But then I wanted to know from these young men, two open-ended questions. So now we're not looking at a scale. I'm letting them write it out themselves, all 200 of them. If for some reason you or your friends have been disrespected, why do you think it happened? And why do you think people like you might be disrespected? I asked them this in 2000. I asked them this in 2000. I wanted to know, what do you think about that? And so they gave me answers. But before they gave me answers, I did a stepwise multiple regression analysis. And I wanted to look at what are the very strongest predictors of violence in this study, Joy. Of all the variables, what are the strongest? And what fell out first was victimization and witnessing, baseline variables we already knew, and respect. Strongest predictor of violence. I'm going, oh my God. And what is the criminal justice system based on? What is its motto? It's punitive. I'm going to try to break you. So in effect, it is a wrong approach to rehabilitation because you are creating a criminal. Because the more you disrespect him and crush him, the more violent he will become. So now I go back to why, though, do you think in 2000, in 2001, and let me help you understand who the other 100 young men were, the ones that were not incarcerated. They were in a Gentleman's Rites of Passage program, Afrocentric program called Bridge Builders, where they went into Passage at 14 and they graduated from Passage after completing 1 year of college. They were going to Stanford, they were going to Harvard, they were going to black colleges, they were going all over the country. Same kids, same zip code area. Only difference was they went through this program of Passage.